anyone who's sort of engaged in anything that would fall under the label of next gen, right? Whether it's in a startup or in a large corporate, you need to be aware that it's an uphill battle. It's literally an uphill battle, it's a marathon run. It's not a quick win, right? It's a journey.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Oren Marmur, SVP and General Manager of the payments line of business at Finastra. Oren is leading the payments growth business, delivering end-to-end payment solutions to customers globally and promoting the product modernization journey towards a cloud-based platform and ecosystem. Oren is a Talpiot alumni, the IDF Elite Technology Training Program. Okay. Oren Marmur, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael, for having me here.
General Manager of Payments at Finastra, but with an exhilarating career previously with Amdocs, and before that as CEO and running companies, and basically being, throughout your career, both as an entrepreneur, as a senior management, working in large and small companies, seeing different technologies, breaking through glass ceilings, and that is the topic of our conversation today, breaking through glass ceilings and working on cutting-edge technology, both on a personal level, but I'm also curious to hear from a leadership standpoint through specific examples. What does that even mean to lead teams that are working on next-generation concepts that are non-trivial? So, Oren, give me a very brief background about yourself as a thinker, as an engineer, as a leader, and then we'll dive deep into 2 or 3 specific examples from your career where you were working on these next generation technologies.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe, in order to explain that, we need to go back as always. And I've heard some of your previous episodes, and it always starts from the Army, right? Definitely here in Israel. So
a lot of them are starting from the Army. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was part of the Talpiot program, which I think, back then was still also known. I think by now is even better known. And I think if you look at the concept of that program, it all has to do with, on the one hand, picking folks that are very strong on the technology side and love, to push innovation and push boundaries and so on, but they can also be leaders. And I can tell you that I remember we heard stories. I was sort of in the 12th year of the program, but if you look at earlier years, sometimes if you pick the brightest ones, they're not necessarily team players or can lead people and so on. So it's all about finding the balance. And I think this is, if I sort of look back, I think this is, by the way, when it started, that I realized that on one hand, I love technology, I love innovation, I love, learning new things, but I love this to be practical, right? I never really thought, although my father is a professor in the Technion or, was retired a few years ago, but for me, I never really related that much to the theoretical stuff. It had to be practical. And for me, doing things with people, seeing the passion, driving new things, engaging with the market, disrupting markets, succeeding with customers, this is really what I'm truly passionate about. How do you really take an understanding of what the market needs, and then the market is constantly evolving, new technology innovation, and people to drive it all? I think it's an amazing combination, not an easy one to crack. And usually most of the challenges are, how do you really combine all of these together?
Perfect. So in order to set the stage, as we dive into some examples of leading in next generation technologies, let's define what that means. What does it mean what does a next generation technology mean, and what challenges would this perhaps pose for a leader?
I think, next gen is it's a broad term, but I think that what we're seeing across the market, first of all, one of the terms I always like, and there's so many lectures around that, is that innovation is not only amazing in itself, but innovation itself further accelerates the pace of change, right? And then it's part of exponential growth, right? So the more we innovate, the more we introduce new things, the faster will be the cycle until we get the next change. And I think what we're seeing is we need to remember that technology, while it's amazing, it's not the goal. It's a means to an end, right? It's about serving customer needs, making lives better, engaging better in between people, and so on. And I think that if you look at all the markets, I spent the majority of my career in the telecom space, and that market is completely disrupted. I think there's a big question mark of whether telecom service providers will exist in the shape they are today in 10 years from now, because at the end of the day, they are becoming what we call fat, dumb pipes, right? And most of the value lies elsewhere. So it's innovation here is not just about, if we take the telecom example, not just about providing, 3G and 4G and 5G and greater speeds. It's about how do you really engage your customers differently? How do you allow new business models? How do you tap into new domains? How do you create an ecosystem of partners that allow you to create additional value? And these are challenges that span, well beyond just the technical aspects themselves. It's about how you really understand or have a forward-looking view, understand where the market would be in 2 to 3 years from now, and provide technology that will truly provide real business value to your potential customers.
All right, so it's time to dig deep into some examples. So Oren, let's talk about a few times where you were working on something that was new, that was different, that was in the next generation. And I'm curious to hear both how you experienced it as a leader, but also how the people that were working with you experienced it as well.
I think that, first of all, anyone who's sort of engaged in anything that would fall under the label of next gen, right? Whether it's in a startup or in a large corporate, you need to be aware that it's an uphill battle. It's literally an uphill battle, and it's a marathon run. It's not a quick win, right? It's a journey, and I think one of the key things is that in many cases that you need to work on so many fronts together. On the one hand, have the vision, the technical and technology vision, and push that technology. On the other hand, you need to do a lot of market education, because sometimes if the more innovative you are, the less people understand at early stages what you're trying to achieve. So you need to sort of not only show them that what you're doing is good, you need to convince them that there's an actual a problem, and they need to do that. And a great example is until recently, I was at Amdocs for about 6 years. For the first 5 years, I led the network virtualization business. So basically, in a nutshell, is how do you take the traditional telecom networks and move them over to the cloud? So cloud is now disrupting all industries.
Sounds simple.
And telecom operators realize that rather than just deploy proprietary boxes and be extremely limited in terms of their ability to introduce new services and react quickly and so on, you can now move many of the telecom functions into as applications into the cloud. Now, when I joined Amdocs in 2015, and we started sort of this concept just came out of incubation from the CTO office, and there was a decision to start making it a real business. And it was literally an uphill battle, both internally within the company, because you need to sort of rally, the sales guys and the sales folks, and they, they're driven by short-term quotas, but you need to sell them on a longer-term vision, as well as the market.
Right.
You would come into a lot of customers, and definitely when you deal with large-scale tier one, customers, and it's true probably for every segment in the market. There's almost this automatic resistance to change, right? You approach a CTO or an executive in most of these customers. The only thing they want to do is, whatever worked for the past couple of years will work for me until I finish my tenure, and let someone else worry about that. So it has also to do with convincing that there is a compelling event, and you need to find the early adopters that will help you optimize and fine-tune the solution. By the way, it's from my experience, what's amazing about this, as much as it is an uphill battle, there is always an inflection point. There's the amazing Malcolm Gladwell book, Tipping Point. It's exactly that phenomenon, right? You get to that point, you can never forecast exactly in advance where it is, but once you show a few early wins, then sort of everybody hops on, because no one wants to be left behind. They start seeing their competitors sort of operate in a different disruptive way. But it does require a lot of vision, forward-looking planning, and a lot of tenacity. You go through so many ups and downs, and you get so many no's along the way. But it's really about dedication, true belief in the end goal, and creating enough sort of rallying enough supporters around you that share that same vision to help you get through that period of time.
Now, when you were doing this at Amdocs out of the CTO office, how did you cultivate this sense of belief and rallying the troops, not necessarily to the 100th person, but to the first person or to the second person? That because you essentially need to build a group of champions around you that are going to be as resilient as you are.
I think, by the way, and I've done this in previous companies in the past, I think it all starts from a personal connection. Okay, at the end of the day, we always say it's one of those cliches that although we work is work, right, and family is family, we spend much more time at work with than we spend with our families, right, and friends and so on. So, by the way, for me, it's not that you necessarily have to be best friends with everyone at work, but I for me, an integral part of work is working with people I believe in, and I feel excitement and fun to come and meet. So the same goes here. Specifically with field functions that are more sort of customer facing, sales, marketing, business development, and so on. It's about creating the personal trust. For them, a lot of people don't realize that their greatest asset is their reputation. And if you're gonna push them into selling something that eventually you cannot deliver, they will lose their reputation, and it might impact their career moving forward. And this is probably one of their main concerns. So it's all about not just sort of going through the formal channels, but creating a lot of personal connections. Let's exciting them about the joint opportunity, making sure that they understand that you're there to really back them up and not just to take a risk at their expense. And usually, I think whenever you do that sort of eye level personal connection, let's create a common goal. Let's all engage together. It becomes much easier to do.
So what ended up happening with this, or what did you achieve either through the specific technological problem that you were trying to solve, or internally within the organization?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we had an amazing journey there. So we started with, as we said, a concept that was pretty much on paper, and then a year or 2 years into the process, we already had that deployed at some of the largest customers around the world. Comcast, AT&T. Certain affiliates of Vodafone, Globe in the Philippines, and so on. And it's amazing. You sort of it becomes sort of a rolling effect of every additional customer you win, the next one becomes a bit easier. It's still a long journey, and when you're disrupting the market, it always takes time until it really hits sort of mainstream. But it was amazing to see it, and I've had this privilege of seeing this several times through my career. It's amazing that the satisfaction of remembering where you started, with things being on paper, theoretical. You hear all the reasons of why not, and not how can you actually do it. And then at the end of the day, where you're sort of standing at the top of the mountain and sort of feeling so satisfied with what you've achieved is worth all the hardship throughout the way.
I love it. Now, today, you're general manager of payments at Finastra, a fintech company. And so what I'm curious about is, how do you cultivate this culture of breaking glass ceilings as general manager now, and especially as you're looking at payments within a fintech company? How are you cultivating the sense of innovation and through leadership or through whatever it may be? How do you go about doing that, especially as you're new to this field?
Right. So first, maybe I'll start with a short sort of sentence of what drew me to join Finastra, and I think that could help. And I remember when I was approached regarding this opportunity, it sounded exciting. By the way, as much as I love the telecom space, I also love to learn new things. So, and fintech is definitely hot. Globally is this, and specifically here in Israel. So it sounded like an amazing opportunity. But as I was sort of started diving deeper and learning a bit, and then I met throughout the process the entire management team of the company. I realized that it's amazing that it's going through the same disruption the telecom space is going through. And then when you look at it, we all know what banks are today. There's a big question mark of whether you need banks in the future, right? Because
right.
we have, I think most of us today are much more attached to the payment apps on our phone than we are to our bank account, right? It's much more intuitive.
Definitely.
And so on. So I realized that while I don't have deep knowledge yet of the specific space, the trends, what cloud is doing, what digitalization is doing, the expectation to have a different customer experience from the end consumers, it's almost identical to the trends we're seeing in the telecom space. And this is where I knew, I could make a difference here, because it's exactly the example of just giving you from Amdocs. And I think this is the vision I'm trying to convey here, is that think big, understand. Sometimes a lot of the engineers and the folks that are working very hard are sort of so deep into this release and this feature and this capability and so on, they tend to lose a bit of the view of the big picture. And we're trying to constantly make sure they understand that we are here to disrupt the market. The financial services market is being disrupted, whether we want it or not. And I think we're in Finastra as being one of the the largest fintechs in the world, and we're serving 90 of the 100 largest banks and have over 9,000 customers and so on. We're in an amazing position to enable our customers to go through that disruption and come out of it stronger. Okay, and this is where, again, it goes back to how do we migrate into the cloud? How do we allow an ecosystem and allow accelerating innovation into their environment and so on? I think that by itself is an exciting opportunity.
So what is perhaps one thing that you do as a leader, either on a day-to-day basis or on and off, that cultivates this sense of both responsibility for what you're doing in the day-to-day, but always aiming big, shooting, going for the moonshots, and at the end innovating to continue being a market leader in the space, which is, as you're mentioning, constantly evolving?
You know what? Someone once told me, when you think of it, if you ask a developer, right, or a software engineer, they know what they deliver, right? They deliver code. What do we as managers or executives deliver? And it's mostly decisions, right? This is our main deliverable. We need to decide, to make shots. And I think one of the things I'm trying to apply here is that let's not leave things up in the air. Let's decide. If it's not clear, let's cut it one way or another. And I'm also a strong believer in fail fast. It's great to fail as long as we've done it for the right reasons. We're not repeating the same mistake twice. We learn from it, and we do these improvement cycles quickly, because the procrastination is the worst thing. If we just wait and wait and wait until we have 100% of the information, the decision will in most cases be irrelevant, because circumstances have changed so many times.
Yes. I love it. Take me back a little bit to your childhood. Before Talpiot, before the army, before working at all these great companies, where's your fascination? What really, sparks your curiosity as a kid?
Being the son of a Technion professor, so you sort of get exposed. By the way, I can tell I was never pushed in that direction, but I was given the opportunity and the exposure. I think from a very young age, I was sort of curious about technology and innovation and how things work, and how do you really stretch boundaries and so on. So that is has always been in there. I think that at a very young age, you don't really know the differences between all the different professions, and as I've listened to some of the episodes and some of the previous folks here, I think a lot of them got to where they got, sometimes by chance, right? It's sort of a combination of your inner beliefs, your passions, but a lot of, being in the right place at the right time and so on. But I always knew that something that has to do with, rational things and sort of improving things and understanding how things operate is probably be in the area of what I'm going to do. So that has probably always been in there. And from there on, it's a journey of constantly learning and improving and better understanding what excites us.
And where do you personally draw the inspiration on a daily basis?
again, mostly from what I've mentioned earlier of innovation and what it does to accelerate the pace of change. I still remember stories. I think we all remember from whatever age we're at of our parents telling us, when we were kids, we didn't have TVs and so on, and look at what you have today. And I can only try to imagine what would my kids have and where the so it's just amazing to understand that there are no boundaries, right? Whatever we do, not only will we continue to innovate, we will continue to accelerate the pace at which change is being applied. And I think it's amazing. It's sort of the infinite power of the human mind and humanity in general.
I love it. Oren, thank you very, very much for these 20 minutes. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and your experience. But I have my last question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself, or 2 or 4.
No, that's fine. It's a good thing that I prepared. So the first one is definitely innovator or innovation. You've heard me mentioning that several times. The second one I think would be a learner. I definitely strongly believe in constantly learning and expanding your horizons and continuing to improve on all fronts. And it doesn't necessarily need to be only in professional fronts. And the third one, and I think maybe you've probably seen this from the pace at which I talk, is fast paced. I like to do things quickly.
Yes.
When I'm set on something, it needs to be done now. So let's not dwell on it too much. Let's understand what needs to be done, and let's run ahead and complete it as quickly as we can.
I can definitely relate. Oren, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. I can't wait to see what you'll do with Finastra and then things later on. I think it's just an incredible journey, and I love the innovative thinking, and I love the deep understandings that you have about what it takes to reach those levels and to do that type of innovative thinking. And so thank you very, very much, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. You too.
Great.